Welcome back to CineMeghan Theaters, Week 11. We just finished watching Daisies, which was directed by Věra Chytilová, and it was released in 1966. It it is a Czechoslovak New Wave film. That was a film movement throughout the 1960s. Just to give some background on Czechoslovakia, because it's been a while since global history, in ninth grade. So Czechoslovakia was behind the Iron Curtain along with the Soviet Union, starting in 1955. This is, obviously after World War II. And it was a communist state until 1989. After the Berlin Wall fell, it kind of sparked a lot of Eastern European countries to also kind of end their communist states. Today, Czechoslovakia is comprised of the Czech Republic and Slovakia. The split from one nation into two happened in 1993. And just kind of to go from that history about Czechoslovakia being a communist state, the Czechoslovakian New Wave, it expressed most of the films within this New Wave movement expressed dark and absurd humor in opposition of the social realist films of the 1950s, because countries were behind the Iron Curtain on part of the Warsaw Pact. They were heavily censored to kind of keep that like idealistic, like, communism is great, and all in all, it's good in theory, but no, not when it's played out. And so these films were against communism with their thematic critiques. So Daisy specifically, as you guys have probably, we just finished watching it, is definitely a satire of the bourgeoisie decadence. Chytilová referred to it as a necrologue about the negative way of life. So kind of like an obit to this like bad way of life, to hopefully showcase the negative aspects of living under a communist regime. So I kind of want to talk about how the film kind of goes against communism in this way. I was reading that she basically she used a lot of her editing styles and the avant-garde-ness of the film to kind of like diverge away from like a plot structured film and make it pretty obvious that this was a new, it was a very obvious new wave Czechoslovak film that went against this political stance. So, and then also just to go off that, I think one of the biggest criticisms that this film has against communism, or the most obvious criticism that it has, is the epigraph at the end. And let me just pull it up because I forgot to write down what it says. But it says, dedicated, at the end of the film, it says that this film is dedicated to those who get upset only over a stomped upon bed of lettuce. So definitely the people who are like very privileged in life, this movie kind of like takes a stab at. So the movie starts off with both of the characters' names are Marie. So the movie starts off with Marie 1 and Marie 2 kind of talking about how spoiled everything in the world is right now, and how they should probably just be spoiled to just kind of play along with it, because no one really seems to care if it, like, that things matter. And I believe that also goes into this whole criticism. One part that I would love to talk about, which is a huge theme throughout it, is the food. I know, Danya, you just said that you kind of hated the way that they ate the food the entire time. They kind of engorge in it. It's very evident, like, they trick these older men into going on dates with them, and then they like play along where it's like, oh, I just ran into so and so, she has to join us for dinner, let's order an obscure amount of food, and they keep eating it. So when I first watched this one, I was in cinema too, and I was just like really curious, like while I was watching it, of like, why is there so much food in this movie? Because it just seems like, yeah, it's insane how much food is used. And then talking about how this is like a critique of just like the communist realist films of the 50s, and trying to go against that. Um, I'm curious if you guys agree with me, if you guys have any arguments against this. I think that like both Maries are like actually starving in this movie.
Um, I would. Yeah, no, no, no. I would say that. I would say that. I would say that too. Yeah, I agree with that. I don't. Yeah.
Yeah. Hello, I'm back. I
Okay.
I agree too, because like I heard the part where you said, yeah, Danye, like I hated the way they ate too,
Mhm.
and they ate like they ate like they were starving every time they ate,
Yeah.
and like even the I think it was the first scene when they were at dinner, like one of them was like they were talking about, oh, that's too much, I just the veal is too much, and then once the food started coming out, they ate everything
Hmm.
that came out, and it was just yeah, I agree.
They even cut a steak out from a magazine and ate that as if that was going to cure their hunger. Yeah, just every aspect of their lives revolves around food. Um, yeah, I was just thinking of this. There was a scene towards the end. Um, oh, when I believe when they're cleaning up, like this was like right before the end, where they're cleaning up um, haphazardly the mess that they made, um, and they're just kind of like talking about being good again, or like what makes people good. And I immediately, sorry to bring it back to like high school English class, but I thought of Animal Farm, where like um, all animals are created equal, but some animals are more equal than others, which is again, that's a book against communism as well. And the Maries are like trying to figure out how they can become good, but even the good people are suffering in this state, because it's a skewed system. Uh, but yeah, I enjoyed the allusion to the tree from Adam and Eve in the beginning, where they decide to be bad. It's just a little fun Sunday school Easter bunny right there.
Yeah. No. There was a
Or
lot. There
Easter
was
egg.
some of those in
Hmm.
that.
What?
There was some of those in that. Like I saw. I remember the part. Well, I don't know if it's like an illusion, but like that part when like they their heads was floated and like they was
Hmm.
doing camera cuts and stuff. Like they like bro. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know what was happening in that scene, but I felt like that was a real cool scene to portray in like 1966 too. Like.
Yeah. Yeah, I would love to talk about the editing. Like, even the train, I guess like transition
Yeah,
with all the colors. Like after reading like the article where Kai Lova was saying how like she made it very avant-garde, so like you would have to like figure out like what the meaning of this film is. It's not necessarily like it's not a typical plot structure. It's a very thin one, if any. um and I found myself like paying attention more to this movie than I probably would like other more structured films, just because I wanted to, I guess, have a competition with myself to see if I could like figure it out.
yeah. Hmm. Yeah, the plot was really loose.
Mm-hmm.
But about the train, even I have my problems with 2001: A Space Odyssey, but it somewhat reminded me of like the one scene in there when what are they doing? They're doing something like the whole like I think they're going to the quantum realm or some scientific shit, and it's just very colorful and stuff like that. And it reminded me of that.
Do you know when that film was released? I haven't actually seen 2001: A Space Odyssey yet.
Hold on, let me see. 68.
Okay.
And what year was this
Picture
film made?
66.
Released 66.
Mhm.
So this film did it first.
Yeah, this film is very I was explaining to some of my friends back at home. I was like, if you join in this week, it's a very avant-garde, like it's very open-ended. Yeah. So I guess like going back on like how this film would fit like into like the specific like Czechoslovak New Wave. Um I'm curious, did you guys like pick up on anything else I might have missed? Totally okay if not.
I would say that. Well, first thing in like I know one thing I appreciated was like the aesthetic, and it's crazy
Mhm.
enough because especially like um going to a school like Purchase College
Mhm.
and just like seeing a lot of people's projects here and stuff like that. I feel like that like the way it was shot and the aesthetic or the color grade, whoever was editing and stuff like that, like it's just it's just it's just like mad pleasing, I guess. Like I
Mhm.
feel like especially what they was going through back and forth. Like majority of films, like they like to stay on like one path. Like they'll have the same color grade
Mhm.
throughout, unless like the scene gets real dark or the scene gets real bright and they got to change it instantly, whatever.
Mhm.
But for this one, like they had scenes where it was like black and white, when it was like tinted, when it was just
Yeah, there
like
were
very
full like
well,
full
yeah. Go
scenes where it
ahead,
would
go
go
ahead.
from like purple to red to green to purple, yellow, like and
Yeah, like
they're
I don't
just
know,
sitting
like
at a
that.
restaurant.
Yeah, like that's like mad dope. But like
Mhm.
yeah, when it was using a one guy and showed and she asked him, "Oh, are you on a diet?" Like that scene right there, like that was a black and white scene. Like I'm like, yo, what? So I feel like that's pleasing during this time because it always like it like switches, and that's
Mhm.
like I guess that's what was most appealing to audiences who watched this during its time period. That like having it always switch can always keep the audience like engaged and stuff. So that's what I found interesting too.
Cool. Yeah, this Daisies was a huge success when it was released, both uh, through audience members and critically. Um, Not within their government, though. I could give you guys a little bit of um, the history afterwards, I guess. So, after Daisies was released, um, government members of the Communist Party did not appreciate this movie, especially they listed the reason as it showed too much waste of food in the movie. Which like I'm sure that's like just a like just like when you have to give an answer without it coming across like too bad, like you got to come up with something. Um so they didn't technically blacklist Vera Chytilová, but they made it like nearly impossible for her to find work afterwards within the film industry in Czechoslovakia. A few years after that, she needed to do work, so she did start doing television commercials under her husband's name. And then in 1976, an international festival wanted to screen her film, and um, the Czechoslovakian government was like being hell no, that's not happening. Even though it was um, like she couldn't release her film for this festival, and so there's actually international pressure on the Czechoslovakian government to let her work again, and they actually allowed her to continue working. So that's pretty cool. Um, Not cool that she was out of work for 10 years practically, but glad that I'm glad that film festival was able to pressure this government. Um, yeah. Oh, I was just about to say something else. Um, it'll come up because it was a cool fact. But yeah, other Czechoslovak New Wave films I've thoroughly enjoyed. The Hand we screened in class. I haven't seen that since freshman year of college, but also Loves of a Blonde. I highly recommend that. That's on the Criterion Channel. I couldn't find it on any of the streaming sites we use, but I highly recommend those. And they also obviously comment on the communist state and what is like what was traditionally like kind of like idealized as like everything's happy, we're all equal, and then like the reality of like people are starving and tricks are being played and even the good people are suffering. Um, but yeah, this is a bizarre movie in a lot of ways, but it's great. So those were kind of all the points that I had. Are there any additional comments?
Just one thing about a scene.
Mm-hmm.
It was interesting how like a lot of the film was avant-garde, but then also some stuff was kind of on the nose. Like
Mm-hmm.
this one scene where I think they're hearing a voicemail from one of the guys professing his love,
Mm-hmm.
and they're just cutting phallic devices. Like they cut a
Yeah.
sausage, then they cut a banana
Mm-hmm.
and stuff like that. I don't know. It was very interesting seeing the avant-garde stuff, like um alongside some like very on the nose
Yeah, with the
stuff.
phallic objects, I thought of um, oh my gosh, Born in Flames. Have you guys seen that movie?
No, I haven't.
No, I have not.
Okay, there's like like transitional scenes, like montages, and like I don't know why this reminded me of it, but in one transitional scene, it's most of the time it. I mean, the film is like centered on women, and so in this scene it's just like women working like different kinds of jobs, and then it cuts to like a factory and like people are working, and then it gets into like a chicken and they're like wrapping a chicken, and then the next shot is like someone putting a condom on a penis. So just like the really like the connection of like wrapping a chicken versus like I guess wrapping a penis. um but I thought of that when yeah, when he was on the phone and they're just like cutting up bananas and sausages and then eating them. Also, the egg. They had an egg too.
Yeah.
Um, and then their conversation afterwards about like whether or not like to call him or not, or like what was his name even. Yeah, yeah, I agree with you. That scene definitely was more on the nose. But yeah, I did think of the fun fact that I forgot. But going back to that film festival that wanted the film, uh, the Czechoslovakian government censored Daisies, and prints were only available in Brussels and Paris. Like, I think it was this film that they wanted to use for this specific festival. And when they contacted um, the director, she was saying, she was like, yeah, I don't want to give you the film like that they have in Czechoslovakia because it's censored. And so you had to get through Paris or Brussels. And that's where the pressure to have her work again started up. But yeah, I would hate that if someone, like, that's crazy having a government like fully take all your prints of your film and censor them. But yeah, now this film is pretty popular, so that's good. um, I think that's it for this week. Unless, again, anyone has any last minute thoughts, questions, concerns, comments.
Um, Nothing really crazy, but it's definitely like I would say I wish I was able to watch this during its like literally during that time period. Well, of course I
Mm-hmm.
wasn't allowed, but yeah. because of course the like historical political history
Hmm.
behind it, the social political history behind it. So, but yeah, no, I definitely think it was a very aesthetically pleasing movie, and it was very like, I guess it would have been very impactful. It's like very impactful to learn that's what type of movie came out during this time. So
Hmm.
I'm glad we got to watch it because I never watched anything like that before.
Yeah. Very few films I feel like are at this standard of avant-garde that I've seen. Like even I've seen some avant-garde films where I'm like, all right, like this is like pretty Hollywood-esque compared to Daisies, like. But yeah, all right. Well, thank you guys so much for joining me. I will announce the movie. I'm still thinking about it, but we could talk about that after this for next week. But yeah, I hope you guys have a splendid evening and a wonderful week, and I'll see you on Sunday. Bye.
Peace.